Hello, welcome everyone. We're just gonna let folks join us for the next couple minutes and then we'll get the party started. Meanwhile, I would love for you to all introduce yourselves in the chat, where you're coming from. I can start. Greetings from Barcelona. Okay, there's more folks I know. I'm seeing you all. Where are you coming from? If you click on the chat, you should be able to share what's your location. Cool. Ah, that was a direct message. Maria Carolina. Rome. Rome, Barcelona, Amsterdam. Great. Nice. Welcome. France, Super UK, Tarragona. US, represent. San Diego. Cool. Fellow Californian here. Brighton and Barcelona. Awesome. I have some more questions for you now that we've all figured it out. Chile. Ah, super. Chiloé, sorry, Frank. Chiloé. I don't know if you've been there in Chile, but it's one of like my favorite places in the world. Okay. I want to know a little bit about the demographics of the audience, just to get a sense of who we are, and it can help facilitate the discussion a bit. So age, what are the age ranges out there? Our students come from many different ages, 18 to 58. I am 40. Truth be told, 29, 40, just turned 32, 29, 31, 40, 29, 40, 36. Cool. Your profession? So what are you doing? Graphic design, esthetician. I guess I'm like in the startup world, translator and psychologist, student, PhD in history, cool. Project manager, unemployed. Don't worry, Frank. There are many out there in the situation. It changes. It's not forever. Healthcare, career break from ecology. Cool. I promise I'm just gonna do this. I just have like one more question for you. No, I lied. Two more questions. What's the first word that comes to your mind when you're thinking about getting into tech? I'd like to know. You can list more words, huh? Just like streamline it, challenge, bootcamp, huge barrier. Getting into tech, first word, product understanding, complicated, fun. Okay, good to see some positivity out there. AI, algorithms, challenging. Yeah. Yeah, they tend to be negative associations. Although I have to say, I've been doing this now for 5 years and the associations have become increasingly less negative. So we've been doing our work. Okay, last question. I assume that since you're here, you've been considering getting into tech, potentially transitioning into the tech industry or a tech role. For how long have you been thinking about it? Weeks, months, years, 2 years, Fatima, it's time. It's time to go for it. Okay, 1 to 2, 6 months, 5 years. Cynthia, 3 years, the past year. Okay. I always say, if you've been thinking about getting into tech for a year or multiple years, it's time to honor that little voice inside of your head and do it, because there's probably a good reason why you're thinking about doing this, and you should honor that intuition. Okay, cool. So great, let's get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Katrina Walker and I am the CEO and founder of CodeOp. For those of you who don't know who CodeOp is, it's an international tech school specifically for women, trans, and non-binary people. We do boot camps, we do workshops, free workshops, we do free events. We are a mission-driven coding school. that has been hyper-focused on quite literally changing the face of tech. And part of our impact strategy is inspiring people, because many folks, including myself, moons ago, didn't know that like later in life, you could get into tech. And so just to give you a little quick story there. So I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area. Was born in '84. Tech in Silicon Valley was starting to explode. Everyone, all the dads in my neighborhood were engineers. My family was not in the tech industry, but actually my grandfather was. He gave me a computer at a young age. I loved my computer. It was my best friend. I was like the most savvy at a young age on the computer. And despite all the opportunity teaming in engineering, despite me loving my computer and really enjoying math and science, I was not encouraged to pursue tech. It's a story that's really common amongst women, trans, and non-binary people. I didn't give it much thought. I basically pursued psychology. I was a social worker for the first 5 years of my life, very powerful work. But I never felt like I had really found the profession that could tap into my intellectual ability. I was feeling a bit bored at work, under stimuli, and around 27, all my friends were working in tech, and I started developing tech envy. And I felt a lot of regret and kind of pissed off at my parents for not encouraging me to do this. This is around like 2010, 2011, and something happened in the San Francisco Bay Area. Basically, all of a sudden there was a coding school. I think it was Full Stack Academy. And I was like, whoa, what's this? You can do this program for 3 months and then start working in tech. This is crazy, because before that, the assumption was you needed a degree in computer science to do this. And that would take a lot of time. And in the United States, a lot of money. And so I was like, wow, this is really cool. I wonder if I can do it. And then I start talking to people who are doing this boot camp, and they're not people that I see myself in. And so I didn't think it was something for me. Then I find out there's this school called Fireside Academy in San Francisco, and it was the first code school focused on women. And then I was like, what? You mean there are people like me who can do a program, are doing this program, and start working in tech later in life? This was totally radical. And so the sort of the mere fact that this institute existed, this community existed, all of a sudden opened up new worlds for me. I didn't decide to, I didn't study at Hackbright Academy, but till this day, I realized it was very powerful to hear stories from people who have embarked on something that you would like to do, that you can relate to, for whom you can relate to, no? And so this is the one event I continue to do once a quarter, every year at CodeOp, because it's super powerful and it's all about sharing stories. Every time we do this, we really try to maximize the differences amongst the panelists. So we can try to, we know that women, trans, non-binary, we're not a monolith. We're very different people with different challenges, coming from different backgrounds. And so it's really nice if you can, hear from a panelist stories that you can connect with. So this is the idea. I've just informed our gracious panelists. The one objective here is to be super transparent with their journeys. The more brutally honest they can be, I think the more helpful it can be. This is not about endorsing CodeOp. This is about sharing their stories. And I can tell you right now, it's going to be very inspiring. It is every time. I guarantee that of the people currently in the audience, one of you, two of you are going to be on this panel a year from now. It happens every time. And so Anastasia just informed me that she had attended this event before she signed up for the bootcamp, and it very much inspired her. She's on the panel. Thank you for being here. Kelly, you had signed up, and then you joined the event, and also it was inspiring for you. So be forewarned that your life could change drastically after this event. So that is my story. feel free to ask questions in the chat for the audience, for the panelists, excuse me, it's been a long day. I am going to interrogate them. And the sort of my approach is I want to know about what you were doing before you decided to do this and what the process was like for you in getting to the decision that I want to do this. Then I want to hear about what it was like to do this. And then I want to hear about, okay, great, you got the education, so you had the tools to make the transition. How has the transition been? So that's how it's going to flow tonight. So without further ado, Kelly, Anastasia, Maria Carolina, thank you for being here tonight. I know you're all busy. I don't take it for granted. Thanks for joining us. So let's start first with just some demographics about the panelists. So if you can just share where you're originally from, how old you are, what you studied, and what you're doing now. That's 4 questions. I can write it in the chat if you need help. I can remind you too, no problem. Let's start with Anastasia.
Hi, yeah, I'm Anastasia. I'm originally from Moldova. It's for those of you who don't know, it's like a tiny country in Eastern Europe. I am 36 years old, and what was the first? Oh, the studies. I studied. Yes, I have as I guess everyone here, a very non-conventional background. So I studied political science, and then I did my master's in international relations. And now I'm working at an NGO that's promoting health access as a data management coordinator. So that's
thanks. Kelly.
All right. So I am originally from Atlanta, Georgia in the US. But of course, I'm, as I said before, currently based here in Berlin with my wife and my son. I am 46 years old, so you're never too old to code. I did a degree in political science, and at the moment I am doing the AWS cloud training. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Maria Carolina.
Hello, everyone. I am Maria Carolina. I'm Italian. I'm from Rome. I am 30. I turned 30 a few months ago, and I finished my bootcamp a few months ago. Before that, I was a psychologist. I did pediatric psychology, and I was working as a psychologist.
Cool. Okay, let's start. Since the mic's on you, Maria Carolina, you can unmute yourself. I mean, you doing very interesting work. You have a master's. At what point did you start thinking about tech? How did it happen?
It was quite natural for me, actually. I share your story, Katrina. I was friends with my computer. I was a little bit of a nerd, not too much because I was not encouraged to. I really like math when I was young, and then everyone was saying that it was too hard, so I feel discouraged. But it was very natural to me because even though I was studying psychology, I was never happy with it. I was doing it because my family kind of brought me to do it. But I knew it was not my thing. I knew that I didn't have a big goal in psychology. It was just, oh, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
And then I started, well, I was very young when I first started designing websites and coding. And then I left it. And then a couple of years ago, probably already 3 years now, I started to design my own website again as an hobby. So that's why I'm saying it was natural, because I was doing it. And then after this, I realized I could do this as a job. And that was just because, just like your story, I found out that there were schools teaching full stack, teaching web development. And I said, okay, if this is a job, if women are doing it, why not me? This makes me happy. So my story is I wanted to be happy. I knew this was gonna make me happy because it was already making me happy.
Nice. Cool. Okay, I'll circle back around because I want to, there's a lot of places to study. So I want to hear about your process in deciding where to study. But first, Kelly, how did you get to tech?
My story is very different. I first of all didn't have a clear path, so just like to lay it out on the line. I was a soldier for 6 years, and then I worked in the healthcare system while I did my university degree in the United States. And I knew I didn't want to live in the United States anymore, so I moved to Turkey and I was teaching there. While I was teaching in Turkey, I like was encouraged to kind of start creating my own curriculum for the students. And in doing that, I kind of discovered gamification, the method of gamification in the classroom, which brought about like a lot of software tools that we were using, things that we needed to create. And I loved it. But some of the tools weren't really user friendly when you think about like a teacher's workload. It was taking too much time to set up, or like they couldn't figure out, the parents couldn't figure it out. And I was like, there has to be better tools that will make like the students like learning process fun. And so like one of the other teachers was like, let's try to learn how to code. And that's how it started.
And so you started getting your hands dirty with learning how to code. You realized you like it, and then what, like things plateau, and you knew that you would need something more formal to take.
Yeah. Like we did some courses through Udemy, and to be honest with you, like it was cool to, first of all, like I love problem solving. So for me, like to see the instant gratification of like you write a code and like you see what it does automatic is like, oh my God, that's so cool. Um, but like when you got stuck, when you had bugs and you couldn't figure it out, like there wasn't really a community there to work through that, and that was really frustrating. And it like I quit a couple times on that because of it. But um I really liked coding, and so I knew like I needed something like more substantial. Like I needed a community for me to be able to succeed in tech. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it like that.
Yeah. For how long were you dabbling in it?
I've been dabbling in it since 2017. So yeah, and then I finally like, yeah, pulled the, what is it called? Like,
Yeah.
I pulled the trigger last year and did the full stack bootcamp through CodeOp too.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for sharing. Estacia, do you have a completely different story, or do these
Uh, it's actually like there's some bits and pieces from each of your stories. So I got a computer from my dad when I was 12. He brought it at home, and then I instantly fell in love with it. I was like the first person in my class to have a computer. So I remember like after school, I wouldn't go and play with the other kids, but I would go home and like try to kind of like just basically learn everything there is. But at that point, I think I was kind of, yeah, too young to understand like, oh, that I really liked coding, or that I really liked technology. Was more, I mean, there were not really any role models, like women role models in my country that were doing IT, or that's, for me, that was not even a path. But I was very curious. I mean, I'm also a bit of a generalist. So for me, it was more like, oh, this is a new thing. Like, let's discover what it is. And then eventually I went to study like social sciences, because I also really like languages and literature. So that was kind of like, that felt more like the natural path. And I ended up studying political science almost by chance, because I moved to Sweden when I was 19 to do my bachelor. And that was one of the very few like non-Swedish bachelor programs that they offered. So I was like, oh, this sounds cool, I'll do it. And then I kind of went into those footsteps, like doing my master's. And then I moved to Brussels. I got this amazing opportunity at the European Commission. It was just before the pandemic. And that's when I actually first get again exposed to IT and to tech, because my role was kind of knowledge management. So it was a bit kind of coordinating, also kind of basically trying to make people use tools and work together online in a more effective way. And it was a bit of IT as well. And I would work a lot with the IT department. And during that time, I was kind of like, I got more and more interested in it. And I started thinking about it. And I started thinking about it in 2019 and I did my bootcamp in 2021. So it also like took me 2 years of back and forth. And yeah, the reason I did it also, I think it was the pandemic and I had a lot of free time. So I just decided like, if I don't do it now, then I don't know when. So it was also kind of like, yeah, just grabbing the moment.
Yeah, taking the bull by its horns. You know, we hear a lot about, well, we talk to prospective students from all over the country, and it's really fun hearing the different anecdotes. And so often it's the case where, they see someone next to them, maybe it's a partner who's doing interesting things on this black screen, and they're like, hey, what's going on? I want to learn that. And now there's a lot of free programs where you can start getting your hands dirty and you're like, whoa, this is fun. It's not what I thought. No, you're building something. And then, with HTML, CSS, you can start building websites. And then it's like, okay, cool. I want more. Am I doing this right? How do I do this? I know that I can be doing this faster. So often what happens is folks plateau. They know they like it. They want more of it. So what do I do? Sometimes people will enroll into a college program. So they're sort of on the spectrum of cultivating this craft, let's say. You have the more traditional path of enrolling into the university. Then you have, some of the best coders out there are self-taught, and that's super cool, but it takes time. And then you kind of have the boot campers in the middle. There are a lot of programs around the world to learn coding. They're not cheap typically. We know it means people empty their savings to do this. They go into debt. It's a really big decision. And so Anastasia, can you share a little bit about your process of what was your criteria in determining this is a place worthwhile?
Mhm. I think the fact that it was offered online, that was, it was during the pandemic. So I was like, yeah, it has to be online, that would be kind of the easiest option. But then I started looking. I actually had a really good friend of mine who was a teacher at another bootcamp. And she told me about it, and then I was looking into it, but then I started kind of reading the reviews, and the other bootcamp was just, it was a bootcamp for kind of everyone, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then I started reading about CodeOp, and I really like the values and the inclusivity, and I guess everyone or maybe some people can agree that also doing something so new and so difficult is very challenging, and also being put in a space can be challenging. And CodeOp to me offered this very safe space. It was women, non-binary, and that was very much kind of reiterated on the website, also in the talk that I had with the
Ruth?
I'm not sure who. Ruth, yeah. Yeah. So I think I just got a very good feeling about it. So then I decided, to go with this option. And I think it's funny because you mentioned that I was I attended one of these discussions because I was like, I think for over a year I was thinking, should I do data science? Should I do full stack? I was really not sure. And then I think actually I asked you at the end of the session, I asked you this question, and you gave me like a very, very good answer. So
Okay, maybe we can repeat that question with other folks. It comes up a lot. Should I do data science, data analytics, or full stack development? I certainly have an opinion on it. So happy to share if folks are interested. Thanks for sharing that. Everyone sort of has a different process. For some, it's totally about vibe, and whether or not they like who they're talking to. For some, it's like the timing worked. For others, it's I knew transitioning into tech was going to be very difficult for me. And I wanted to make sure that it would be a non-competitive environment. Otherwise, I'm not going to get that much out of it. For others, they had an Excel sheet and they were, with different scoring metrics. And then it was sort of, okay, which bootcamp got the best metric? So there's a lot of ways to approach it. Kelly, what was your process?
For me, like it was honestly a really difficult trigger to pull because I wasn't just thinking about myself. Like I have a son at the time, you know, he's still in elementary school, so there's a lot of moving pieces with this and how this will go down with him and like how much time I would actually be able to give to him without like disturbing my work-life balance because I can't get back the years that he's growing up right now and the activities and things that he's involved in. So and the other factor for me is also that like I wanted to feel comfortable, like I didn't want me being a lesbian to interfere with my process of being able to learn. I wanted that topic to be taken off of the table and for it just to be about the material that we're learning and not people uncomfortable working with me because of like if they were going to be uncomfortable working with me, I wanted to be because of my character, not because of what they see, you know? So these were the things that I started to look for when I looked at boot camps. Um, one of the things that I think was there were multiple things that were my selling point for CodeOp. It wasn't just one thing. I looked at several boot camps here in Berlin. Like I said, it probably would have been easier for me to do something local, but I attended one of the free workshops where you can like do the like a web page in like that time with Sophia. And like one of the biggest things in that moment was like Sophia had made a couple mistakes even as the instructor, and she was like, oh, like you could see her working through the code and she was explaining like where it broke, and it was so refreshing to know like even her as the instructor made mistakes and that's okay, and so if I'm going to make mistakes, this is okay too. That was the first thing. um Setting up the call with like CodeOp compared to like the other ones here, I felt like a person. It was very personable. Like I remember one of the first times I had a conflict, a scheduling conflict, and I had to reschedule and it wasn't like a big deal. And then when they actually talked to me, like they were invested in getting me to my goal of ed tech. So yeah, I I this is why I chose also the full stack developers course, it more in line with what I wanted to do, but ultimately I think this is why I chose it.
Since you mentioned parenting, um, well, actually, maybe I'll save this question for the experience during the boot camp because you knew that it was going to take a lot of time to do a boot camp.
Yeah.
No, so some of the things that come up if you're a parent is the feeling of guilt. No,
Yeah.
and so did you ever experience that? And if you did, how did you handle it?
Yeah, like I mean, I felt a little bit of guilt, I'm gonna say, but I don't think I felt as much guilt as I thought I was gonna feel because I did the part-time full stack course online. Um and the like my TAs and my instructor were so supportive. Like I remember the first milestone, my son broke his arm.
Gosh.
And I ended up like starting the milestone and then I had to leave to go to the hospital, and like I wrote them and they're like, don't worry, it's gonna be okay, just like take care of your son. And I was just like, it in that sense it made me feel like a little bit less guilt. The time also that it was set up made it possible that like I got to spend as much time with him as possible. Like there was that one little hour before bedtime that we didn't get time together, but I was able to make up for it the other days that I didn't have the course. So yeah, I think it was a nice balance.
Okay, cool. Maria Carolina, how did you decide? I know that we had a stellar interview process, but no, tell me a little bit about how you went about finding boot camps and choosing them.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say something different because I was getting a little bit emotional with Kelly's story, and not specifically the story, but the answer of the people that you, Katrina, brought together, because this is the experience of CodeOp, and I think Anastasia also shares this when she says the feeling of being safe. So I felt it again with Kelly's story, and when Anastasia says she feels safe, she felt safe. So first of all, I want to thank you for bringing together these people, because this was also my experience in CodeOp, just feeling safe. This was probably the expectation of a place that was women-led and where women and non-binary people would participate in the classes. I was definitely one of those people doing the Excel and writing all the different things about one bootcamp, one different bootcamp, one school, blah blah blah. Because I wanted to be sure, because as you said, I have my master's. I studied for 10 years before starting the bootcamp, so I wanted the bootcamp to be the best option for me in think about the job. So yes, I did decide for CodeOp, comparing it with other schools in a technical point of view. So the time, the amount of hours in classes, because I wanted to be the most hours spent studying in the less time possible. I did a part-time. But also, most definitely, I wanted to be who I am. I am also a queer person, and I never felt myself I am from Italy, and here our stories here are very, kind of sad. Not all stories, but most, especially during school years. So I was never myself. So when I realized that I could talk about myself, and when I realized that I was able not to hide in this school because I am a woman, because I am a queer woman, because there is no pressure of being a queer woman. That was probably the most, I wouldn't say the reason why I chose CodeOp, because again, I chose it because the technical part was what I wanted, but it was like, this is perfect, it just, it makes so much sense. So, at the end of my decision, it was all genders school and CodeOp, and I decided, I think the most important thing is community. So when the technical parts are the same, the most important thing is community. And this is why then you can feel safe, and then you can say, hey, I have a problem. And teachers and TAs are really going to say, no worries, like, this is cool. Your life is more important. And this is not something that you can hear a lot in school, right? So definitely community is the most important thing when you have the same or closer technical parts.
Wow. Thanks everyone. I'm feeling very moved myself now. Just to sort of take off the CEO hat for a second and share with you all, my experience, because I've also transitioned into tech. I didn't do a boot camp. It was my plan B. My plan A was to do a master's. And that's actually what brought me to Barcelona. And if folks want to hear, if they want a recommendation to a master's program, I can do that. And if they want to hear about the experience, I'm happy to share. It was like a 1-year boot camp. In fact, it was a very transformative experience. It was, we say it was, all genders or co-ed, but in the end, that means predominantly cis men and and very few cis women typically. I had only cis men as instructors. And so actually for me to survive that program, because technically it was so intense, I just sort of had to forget my identity to stay afloat, because it was super intense, and I don't know how healthy that was. I lost 8 kilos. It was one of the most intense experiences I've ever had. But yeah, I literally had to just forget who I was, because most of my peers, and don't get me wrong, they're like my little brothers, but they were like, so there was not only differences in gender, but also age. And so they were all like, 22, 23-year-old dudes who I still talk to. I have a good network of them, but it was very different. And I sort of just had to forget who I am. There's no question that it would have been a different experience for me, I think, had I community, because what happened was, okay, I did the program, I could forget who I was for that 1 year. And then I started working as a data scientist in the corporate space, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? You know, it's like one thing to hear about statistics for marginalized people working in tech, and it's another thing to experience firsthand. And especially me coming from the nonprofit world and used to being around folks who have more values aligned with mine, was culture shock. And I had like no way to navigate that. And there's no, so I was part of the 10% of women that drop out of tech to start startups, which is, okay, it's a fine statistic. But I really wonder, had I done my plan B, had I gone to Hackbright Academy, would I still be working as a data scientist or a full stack engineer, whatever? I have that question. So anyway, these things really matter, huh? These things matter. So yeah, thanks for sharing this. What I would say to folks who are thinking about, you know, spending big money to do this, what I would do first is the curriculum of a data science program or full stack development program is not going to be too different, because we need to create curriculum that reflects the needs of the market so you all can get jobs. And there's just, you know, there's sort of common technologies and tech stacks that you need to know. And so that won't diverge so much. What's going to be really key is, who are you going to be learning from? So find out who the instructor would be if you're deciding of doing a boot camp. Find out who the instructor is. How long have they been teaching? What is their experience? What is the educational support team that you'll have? This is key. Then, so if you find out who the instructor is and you're like, hey, this is a person I want to study with, try to sit in and audit a class so you can see firsthand what the experience is going to be like for you. And then certainly talk to people who have been through it. This is a good indicator, and this would be my strategies for you all. Okay, great. So we've all decided to do a boot camp. And then you jump into this world. What, Kelly, for you, like, you had some ideas of what a boot camp would be like. In the end, was it what you expected? How was it? Tell me a little bit about the experience.
It was not what I expected, to be honest with you. It was probably more than I expected to get. So I mean, of course, you know, we built projects and things like that, but it was just kind of like, again, I have to go back to like the support in the community, because like it's a very steep learning curve in the boot camp. Like everything starts off and you're like, oh, this is cool, and then all of a sudden, like there were many days that I like ended the day crying, like, what, like, how am I ever going to finish this? And my TAs were never like a short phone call away, and they always were like, Kelly, you're gonna be fine. I like, we've done this before, like we know you and what you're capable of, and we know you're going to be fine. And they were right, you know. And um even the instructor was the same way. Like if we felt lost in the class, she could just like look at our eyes. She didn't really have to ask. She was like, you didn't get that, did you? And she would just you know, do it again.
Who was your instructor, Kelly?
Say that again.
Who was your instructor?
Sophia. I absolutely love Sophia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So it was a big surprise. You know, when I found out I was accepted into the data science program, I was like, all right, I have time to prepare. I enrolled in like summer courses at Berkeley in statistics and probability. And I was like, I'm going to be super prepared for this data science program, even though I come from a social science background. And then that took, I don't even think that took me to one day of the master's
Yeah.
program. And like, so we provide coursework, like pre-coursework.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, is necessary to do. But like, if you do that, and even if you, whatever, you studied tech many moons ago, when you start the boot camp, it takes you to like maybe the end of week 1.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because things just, it's cumulative knowledge, right? So it
Yes.
builds off the previous knowledge,
Mhm.
and it becomes intense. I don't think there's anyone who says it's not intense.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, I say to them, there's not really any way to prepare for a boot camp. And yet you still need to do the pre-course work.
Yes.
Yeah.
You won't survive it without the pre-course work. I definitely have to say that, because the curve like goes from that to like boop.
See,
So
see. And Anastasia, what was your experience once you decided to start the boot camp? How did you prepare for it? And then tell us a little bit about the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, so I didn't know exactly how the structure is gonna be. I mean, like I knew kind of from I read the material, but I was like, oh, I'm curious how it's gonna look like. So I actually Googled boot camp, but then I found like pictures about like boot camps in CrossFit or something, and I was like, no, this is not it's not it. But then actually that applies quite well because it is intense and it is, yeah, it's definitely a steep learning curve, and I really wanted to be fully prepared for it, so I did all the pre-work, like, and I was like, okay, I did the pre-work, this should be fine. The first week was like when we learned a bit of HTML, a bit of CSS, I was like, okay, yeah, this is okay, like I'm getting it. And then when we started learning, yeah, like all the more advanced stuff, I think I had a, yeah, I almost I went and cried in the corner and I had an existential crisis.
Very
But
common, very common.
yeah, it was the thing that helped though for me especially, and I must say that yeah, like Kelly and Maria Carolina, like I really the community was there for me. I really, when you mentioned that, I could relate so much, especially because while I was doing the boot camp, I mean, I really had the privilege of being, of having my own place, of living of having a job and not having to care for anyone. So really, how do you say it? My hat off to people who actually have other responsibilities. For me, there was my work and the boot camp, so that I was really privileged. I admit that. But the downside of it was that I was feeling lonely. I was in a city that I didn't know. It was during the pandemic. Everything was closed. So really, the community at CodeOp, they also were my friends, and I was so excited to see them. I was like, oh, this is like the highlight of my day.
Nice,
So, and
nice.
the teachers, Jim was my teacher. He's fantastic.
Cool, cool. Maria Carolina, how was it for you once day one of the boot camp? Were you like, okay, I'm ready for this? And you felt strong the whole way through?
I am probably one of the few people who felt confident and
Ah, very good.
relaxed. I have heard a lot of stories like, oh my God, this is getting out of my hands, and from my colleagues, let's say, or friends, as Anastasia would say. So yes, in the experiences in my class were different. I was pretty chill during the whole boot camp. I think that was probably because I was really enjoying it. Like I was having fun. So I would study by myself when I didn't understand some things. And also, to be like very honest, when I didn't understand the most difficult things, I would just let them go, because I know that some things come back, right? You study them and then you need them in 2 weeks. And this coming back of the things, even though the first time you heard about them, you didn't understand them so well, the second time it's easier. So instead of getting frustrated, I was just, okay, this is a little bit harder than some other things. That's okay. So yes, I think my experience is just very positive, which I'm not sure is 100% useful, but it's definitely, it was very positive. It was complicated. I don't even know if it was complicated, because I was just doing what the instructor was telling me to do. I was studying what I needed to study. And So it was challenging, but I like that. I like the logical thinking that is required in the bootcamp. So it was fun again.
Instructor?
My instructor was Anna
Okay.
from Greece, and I just love the woman. I I understand that everyone loved their instructor, so that's kudos to you also, Katrina, for choosing good instructors. um, we had a very nice relationship. She was very much supportive. Also, the TAs were supportive and prepared. And the only thing I regret is not having more time to do the bootcamp. Like I wish it was longer, you know, which is also thinking in a different way. It's also not like the good thing for me was that it was short. So, you know, I wish if I have a wish, I wish I had started when I was younger. So I had a lot of time to study, a lot of time to repeat the boot camp, maybe every year. I don't know. But yeah, my experience was just very happy and easy.
Can you walk us through like a typical week for the part-time program in the evening, just for folks to get a sense of the flow?
My part-time was in the morning. Yes, of course. So first of all, I agree with Anastasia and Kelly. The pre-boot camp, so the preparation before was very useful. So I would suggest study or try all the free courses that you can find online, because those are gonna make your life way easier. And also it's easy for you to understand if this is the right thing. Or, you know, I was reading about data science before studying full stack. Then I started studying free full stack courses, and I was like, oh, I like this one better. And that's, you know, so and that's why I decided for the full stack. And we were doing 3 days, 3 mornings each week. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And the general class would be, first of all, we have a lesson. So we hear about new theories, some new technologies, maybe we do some exercise together. And after that, there is usually some exercises you do by yourself, so that, or with your partners in class, so you understand better the theory, and you can see if you understood it, and you can see if there is something that is maybe more difficult about this subject, and you can ask questions to the instructor on TA about that. And then we have exercises to do at home, and this is one thing that I noticed that I would say most, but let's say half of my colleagues in class were not doing. So I heard about a lot of complaining about, this is getting too hard, but then I also knew that they were not doing the exercises because they were telling me they were not. So this is one thing that I would suggest to people who want to do the boot camp. You have to be 100% in it and trust the process that they present you, the instructor is presenting you. If they say this is an exercise that you need to do it, because it's gonna be useful and you're not gonna get lost. Otherwise, you're getting lost. So that's it. And then we have homework exercises, and every maybe 3 weeks we had these exam-ish. Where you would repeat everything that you learned. So just like a big repetition of the last weeks.
Projects.
Is that
What can you share a little bit about your project? What it was?
my project? Like
And
the
like whatever, it could be your MVP or the feature extension or the final project.
Yeah, so for the MVPs, that would be like my first project, the first thing you try by yourself, and a short version of an application, let's say. I did dice game, like a game that it's played with dice. And it was something that I wanted to do because I was playing this game with my friends. So I thought, maybe to have it online would be useful. The person who got my product and what was the word? They got my product and did the next part of it was the same person I got the product from for my second project. And that was the most challenging thing because they were like the genius of the class. So the second project is like, again, chill, do what you can. And teachers are telling you this, like they're like, it's not easy to get and to get someone else's product and develop it. And this is a great experience, great experience for when you are then working after, because a lot of times you're gonna get a product from someone else and you have to develop it, but you have to be, to stay close to the original project, but then you have to add something. So that was the second project was big, challenging and very useful. And then the final project with my group. So we were, I think, 3 or 4 groups of 4 people, and we developed an application, a full stack application. It was very fun. It was challenging because we were all students, so we didn't know how to behave in a group project. Some people knew better. Most of us didn't know. And that was the experience of, this is the real world experience. This is how it's going to happen when I get a job and I'm working in a group. Again, if you're having fun, if you are talking to the people you're in the group with. So if you care about relationships, maybe this is my psychologist background, but if you just share yourself, your fears or your frustration, and if you don't put everything you got onto the other people, it's gonna make your life easier. And it's very much satisfying when you get a full stack application from zero to the end of it. It was very fun. We actually also even thought about developing more the app and deploying it, so publishing it. So it was like, I'm a developer now. And I think also the fact that the school prepares you to be a full stack developer, and also the fact that it gives you the opportunity with the final project. I think it's very important because a school, a boot camp, not even a school, like a boot camp needs to be practical. It needs to give you the tools. So it was very good.
Cool. I'm happy to hear that. Thanks for sharing all of that. So it's an intense experience. Maria Carolina, I think you pointed in on some really good tips, and it's what I share, folks. If you decide to do this, you're investing in yourself. Try the hardest to maintain perspective that you're investing in yourself. You're learning. By definition, learning is hard. No, you're stepping into unknown terrain. Your ego is very vulnerable because you're learning something new. You don't know it. It's hard. And you're going to be more successful in doing any challenges, I feel, if you can manage your expectations. So if the expectation is this is going to be hard, it's going to be painful, but I'm going to get through it, and you have this like positive mantra that you're saying in your head, it will push you forward. What's really important is to not compare yourself to others, to breathe and to have faith in the process. Like coding schools, I'm sorry, aren't around for no reason. They tend to work. You get the skills you need. Little kids can build full stack apps. They're learning Ruby on Rails. We have the capacity. It's just, you need to be kind to yourself and patient, because that is the kind of knowledge that you're learning. It takes time to digest. And in the end, boot camps really actually set you up for failure, because in the end, we expose you to a lot of information. And the second you start feeling comfortable in something, you move on to the next thing. And it's built, and so you actually never feel confident typically in the boot camp. But the thing about the knowledge is that it iterates. And so you come back to it and you go a little deeper into it and you feel a little bit more comfortable. And then all of a sudden, you cannot deny that you haven't learned anything because you're building things. It's right in front of you. And that's really powerful to experience. And it has you coming back for more. Okay, how many of you three were dreaming about code while in the bootcamp or now? Did anyone ever dream of code? I remember I did. Okay. Maria Carolina, no. The psychologist had things under control. Cool. Okay, so we have, I want to transition now into, okay, so you've studied it. So what do we see? This is sort of the pathway. First, yeah, I want to get into tech. I want to get into tech. Oh, it's possible. Can I do a boot camp? Am I getting accepted into a boot camp? Okay, I got accepted into a boot camp. Great. Oh crap, now I need to do the boot camp. Can I do the boot camp or am I gonna fail? Like this is a big question for me. It was like I got accepted and I was like, amazing. And I'm like, oh shit, now I need to do the master's program. Am I gonna succeed? And then you do it, it's hard, and then you graduate and you're like, oh my God, I graduated. Oh shit, now I need to start looking for a job. Am I going to find a job? What if I can't find a job? And so it's like this reoccurring pattern that happens. And what we hope is that this reoccurring pattern, it's familiar. And now you have evidence of you actually reaching that milestone. No? And so like the last experience of this is, can I get a job in tech? The statistics are out. The majority of people start working in tech. You start working in the tech, then you get the job and you're like, oh shit, now I need to do the job. Can I do the job? No, I experienced that. First time I got a job as a data scientist, like, oh, this is great. They believe in me. I don't totally believe in myself yet. Let's see what happens. And typically, like our students say, it takes 1 to 2 years to start feeling more confident in the job. And then the world is your oyster and you become a really hot commodity, usually in the first, so finding the first job is not easy. So don't let anyone tell you that. It takes work, it takes effort, it takes determination, it takes community, in my opinion. Then when you get the job and it happens, it's going to take a lot of CVs. Typically, you're sending out your CV, a lot of job applications. The majority, like I said, it will convert, you start working. And then all of a sudden on LinkedIn, people are knocking on your door all the time saying, hey, do you want to work? I hear this all the time. In fact, some of our graduates now have on their LinkedIn profile, actually, I'm just going to, Olga, I love it. You should talk to Olga. You should all meet Olga. She's amazing. But this always makes me laugh when I see, right, yeah, here she is. When I see her LinkedIn, can I share my screen real quickly? This is Olga. Yeah. Not looking for new opportunities. No, this is where I want all of our grads to be, because you become a very hot commodity, and that is a game changer for people. We know that. And that's why it's quite exciting. Now I need to figure out how to get back to the main screen. No, cancel. Give me 1 second. Can sorry, I ran into this issue earlier. I don't know. Stop sharing. Okay, here we go. Cool. Okay. So that is the end goal. And it's a knowledge that is game changing. It's difficult. I agree, Maria Carolina, that it's hard work. It's a lot of effort. It's an investment on many different levels, and not everyone is ready for that. And so it needs to be the right time of your life. We don't accept anyone into the program, even though I believe that everyone can learn full stack development. And we don't do it because again, you need to be in the right mental space so you can be kind to yourself and kind to others and really be ready to take on the adventure. At the same time, you'll probably still have doubt, but that's natural and normal. But things need to be stable, I think, for you to really take on this challenge because it's very intense. Okay, great. So let's talk about what the experience was following the boot camp. Anastasia, share a little bit about, so you graduated the boot camp and how was the job hunt? Tell us a little bit about your process and experience.
So I actually started my journey was a bit different. Like it started, I had a very kind of smooth transition into my first job. And I wanted to, by the way, say like one thing. I think it's at least to me was very important to do the bootcamp with a goal in mind. Like, I mean, of course, kind of transitioning to tech, but having a specific goal in mind, I think that really helped me when, yeah, when things were tough or when I thought that, okay, like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. And my goal was, I mean, it was very practical, but it was, I really wanted to move back to Amsterdam because I lived there during my master's. So I really wanted to move back there. So even a few weeks before we graduated, and one of the nice perks of the CodeOp Bootcamp is that, oh, I'm sorry, I don't want to say something that's not right, but we had the 2 weeks career prep. Is that still okay? That's still happening. Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want to like say something
we
wrong.
haven't had that.
So that was really, really helpful because I come from a social science background. So my CV was very much tailored to the NGOs, to the government. And we had these sessions, even like we did mock interviews, and we went through the CV. So that really, really helped me through the to kind of for the real world, for the recruiting, for the job hunt. And I graduated in July, and I was very lucky that I got my first job in October, so a few months afterwards. And it was a tech consultancy. So I was supposed to start as a full stack developer, but they had some roles that were more kind of into business analytics, and they saw my profile and they said, okay, you have experience in social sciences and a tech background. This would be a better fit. And I accepted it because I thought that, okay, I really wanted to kind of move back to Amsterdam. So I took this opportunity. So for the first year, it was a very smooth kind of transition into not really coding, but really getting to know the jargon, the kind of just the tech process. Like we were working with products, so I would really get to see kind of the product from kind of the idea, the development, basically what we did during our project, during the MVP, but in the real world, like with a real company. So that was very helpful. But then I got a bit tired and bored of the job, and I thought, okay, I actually studied full stack development, so I wanted to like try to get a job as a coder. So then I took a few months where I was really I was preparing a lot, I was reading, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, I was coding every day. There were some things that I forgot because I haven't coded in a year, so I really had to kind of do a post like mini boot camp to get back into it. And it was tough. It was a tough experience because I thought, okay, I have 1 year of experience already and it will be easy, but that year was not in coding. So I was really starting from zero. And it was tough. I had a lot of the thing is, there were a lot of, I applied to a lot of jobs and got a lot of calls, but they would all turn into rejection. And the thing that kind of helped me not lose my spirit was that I asked them, okay, so could you just give me the feedback? And I know in a lot of other industries, they would just send you like this generic letter and say like, hey, no, we don't want you. But in tech, at least in my experience, they are willing to give you feedback, even just like a few sentences. And the feedback was usually like, yeah, you just don't have the right experience, but you can get the experience with time. So, and that's kind of, I mean, that might sound strange, but I was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me per se as a person. It's just like, I don't have the experience yet, but that's kind of, and that's a very clear goal. So yeah, then I tried for a few months. I got my first kind of coding role at a startup in Amsterdam. I had to do a small challenge, which took me, I think, I had to build a small full stack app that took me around a week. I actually, the courses, like the material was very helpful. because it was very similar to what we did. It was also JavaScript, and so it was very, very helpful to kind of revisit some of the notes and some of the things. And by the way, another thing, I mean, maybe that's kind of, I'm jumping a bit ahead, but for those who will do the bootcamp, and it doesn't matter, the product doesn't have to be finished, right? Like you have to try, right? I think that's what counts, and that's what a lot of companies, they like if you try. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know, because also that's the thing with coding, right? And with building products, you can always iterate, it can always be better. So because I didn't finish the coding challenge, I didn't finish it, but I was surprised when they actually they called me back, and I went for another interview with them, and they offered me a position as a full stack developer. It was a very small team. When I started, we were 3 people in the engineering team, so the CTO and then another full stack developer. So it was a very steep learning curve. And I was struggling a lot in the beginning to understand the code base, to kind of navigate everything. So it was definitely a challenge. I only stayed for 7 months because the team was very cisgender male, so that's I just felt like I don't fit in. But I do appreciate the experience. But yeah, after 6 months, I decided to move on. I applied to another full stack developer position in another company in Netherlands. There was a bit more, the tasks were a bit more varied. The kind of the team was also more varied. So I felt, I felt more, safe. I felt more included. And then after 7 months, again, it was always something with 6, 7 months. I was let go because it was, now that there's recession, so they said that I was the last one to be hired. I was the only person they let go or they fired, because I was the last one to be hired. So they said that we can't keep you anymore. And then I had a few months of just kind of thinking, okay, what do I want to do next? I tried coding, I do enjoy it, but I think I also want to combine it something with more social, because I do come from a social science background, so maybe something that's more in line with project management or coordinating. So how do I combine my experience in the NGO world with coding? So I was only applying for this type of jobs, and it's a very kind of it's a very small niche. But I was only applying. I was like, okay, I will apply. I was applying for the Dutch government, even though I don't speak Dutch. I was like, okay, I'll go for it. I was applying at all the NGOs that would need some kind of technical position. And luckily, after I think I was unemployed for 5 months, I just started a new job 3 weeks ago in an NGO that's in a pharma NGO. They basically they try to make big pharma companies donate more medicine in low middle income countries. And they needed a data management coordinator. So basically my role is, it's kind of divided into 2 sides. So we deal with, or the researchers at the NGO deal with a lot of data, and that data, they have to kind of put it in a database, and they have to kind of export it and make figures. So I assist them with all the technical kind of issues of if they have technical issue with the database, if something is not working, or they need to make to make some rankings. And then the other side is automating processes. So there's still a lot of kind of, because it is an NGO and they don't have the funding, it's still a lot of things are very old school. So there's a lot of like copy pasting, there's a lot of time spent on slow processes. So my job would be to kind of automate things, see if I can integrate some applications. So there will be some coding, but it's more kind of business logic. And it's really, I mean, I've only been here for 3 weeks, but I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's kind of the roads, it really took me through all this, through all the steps, but I think in the end I did find the career that I enjoy.
Really nice. Thanks for sharing and congrats on the new job. I think it's important to
you.
note, I mean, your story points out a few things. First, you can study full stack development and you can use that knowledge in many different ways. It's not that, I mean, we collect data from our graduates to see what they're doing. And one of the questions is, what is your title? And it's super diverse. We have a long list of different professional titles after people study this, because in the end, learning how to think like an engineer, it's so much more than coding. It's not, oh, I can code something in JavaScript. It's, you know how to you're a professional problem solver. You know about iteration, you know about automation. These are transferable skills. So I don't do data science. Well, okay, maybe I do some analyses, but I'm sure the hell not like building models right now in Python. I've completely forgotten how to code. I kind of miss it, but I use the tool that makes the most sense. So for me, I'm using Excel. And there's no way I could have done what I've done as a CEO had I not studied data science. That's a fact. So and obviously I'm biased on because I decided to create this school. My thinking is it's never in vain to study something. It's something that will always be an advantage in your career, and you can do many different things with it. So cool. Thanks for sharing your journey. Kelly, you graduated the bootcamp in May. Tell us a little bit how things are going.
I find a whole lot of truths in everything that each of you said, because I agree that the bootcamp definitely sets you up to find a certain comfort in failing, and also to face your fears and still do it even though you're scared. And this is all part of the process. Like Anastasia said, I also, like when I started the process, the career week was helpful in the fact that they said like it's really important for you to network and to get out there and to kind of get a feel of what's going on in your world and how to best execute, like applying for jobs, applying for everything that like I guess that you kind of qualify for. Even like one of the things that I saw at one of the events I attended was like women will look at the first 3 items and be like, nope, and skip the post and never apply. And I was like, it makes you more mindful of all of these things in the process. I have like a Google folder full of rejections. But I also tried to see the positive because again, like Anastasia said, like they took the time to reject you and they explain why they're rejecting you. And like there are some that will never reach out to you and say why, like you never hear anything about it. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a combination of all of those things. As you already know, for me, like I was on the search for a lot of answers for different things. And for me, it led to building a community for myself here in Berlin. Even though CodeOp is based in Barcelona, I kind of miss like being able to reach out, because I mean, that was one of the things in the boot camp. Like you realize when you actually started talking to your cohort mates, like you all were all struggling with the same problems. You were all having like the same challenges. And so when I got to this stage of applying for jobs, I was like, there has to be people that are having the same problems as me. Let's like band together and like figure some stuff out. And so yeah, for me, I think I found some peace in building that community in the process of applying for jobs. Um, like I said, ed tech was really important for me. So every ed tech company I came across, if I thought I was remotely qualified for it, I applied for it. And actually the company that I'm going to start working for in October, it's a ed tech called Edurino. Um, it was like a QA position as an internship, and they were actually looking for students, like university students. And they clearly said, like on the application, we do not want any cover letters, but they gave me like one little line where, is there like anything extra you want us to know about you? And I said, yeah, like I'm not a student, a university student, but I did just graduate from a boot camp, and I really love ed tech and what your company is doing. So this is why I'm applying. And like 3 weeks later, the recruiter like called me and he was like, are you sure? Like, you know that this is like an internship? And I was like, yeah, I know, but I really love what you guys are doing. And 2 interviews later, and they
Yeah.
hired me for the position.
This is a congrats.
Thank
You're gonna
you.
rock it. It's in automation.
Say that again?
In automation.
In
Doing
QA, yeah.
QA. So I
Yeah.
want to introduce you to some graduates because actually Olga, this is like her area of expertise, and I think it's a really rich field. Actually, we should start a little sub community at CodeOp of people who are doing QA because it's a really rich field. You touch upon a really important point around job search strategy after the boot camp, and you can have a quantitative approach where you're just shooting out a lot of CVs, easy apply through LinkedIn. And then you can have a more qualitative approach where you're really curating your list of potential employers for whom you want to work. I have to say, we've seen both strategies work.
Yes.
And so I think the overall strategy should be doing both, no? Like,
I
find
agree.
people, yeah, find the people, find the companies that are of interest to you. And then certainly shoot out CVs on LinkedIn. Reason not
I
to.
mean, at my age too, though, like I told you, I'd been a soldier, I'd been a manager in a healthcare system. Like at this point, I was more interested in like working for a company that I knew I was going to have fun. Like I was trying, I was almost like when I was looking at the job postings, I wanted a job that was going to recreate the experience that I had at CodeOp, that was going to give me that type of vibe. So even if it wasn't an ed tech company, I was very I sent out a lot, but I was still, I like, we have that freedom and flexibility, I think, in tech, which isn't true in every field. As a teacher, there aren't a lot of flexibilities with that. Like, but here, like you said, there's lots of different jobs that once you have the tech skills, you can apply for so many, like a wide spectrum of jobs. And like I knew finance for me was off the table. I have no desire to work in tech finance, but there were other things like climate, like different women in tech things, and again, ed tech. Like there's so many like different groups that you can like just see and like what they're offering and apply to those. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, privilege exists, and there's no question that with technical skills, it comes with a lot of privilege. Maybe initially it's sort of hard to break in, but once you break into it, there's privilege in terms of like, okay, there's the tech industry, but guess what? All the industries out there also need developers. They also need analysts. So like, you have a lot of options in different directions you can go. Compensation, like it's one of the knowledges where the more you accumulate, there's sort of a positive correlation with your salary. That doesn't hold true in every profession. Then, of course, in terms of flexibility, we have students who become digital nomads. There's a lot of flexibility. For me, what was the most compelling was the intellectual stimulation. So if you like learning, it's a field in which you can just continue to learn. So that was cool. Maria Carolina, tell us a little bit. So you also graduated in May this year. Tell us a little bit about how it's gone on the job front.
So I used a lot the 2 weeks of career preparation that the school gave us. As I did for the rest of the boot camp, I was 100% into it. So they were saying, you should do your curriculum like this, and I did it. And you should put your LinkedIn like this, and I did it. You should. So I saved all the information, all the suggestions from the people that I met in those 2 careers week, but also I studied a little bit online from other people, the best way to get a job. I think that was something very important. At the same time, I did an internship, which the school CodeOp found for me. I apologize, there is background noise. My cat wanted to go out in the balcony, so my window is open. So, they were crying, so I'm gonna speak louder. So the school gave us the opportunity to do the internship, and I did it. Not a lot of people from my class did. And I think that's you know, something that you should really think about as a person who has studied a lot. I realized during my 20s that internships are so useful because they give you the opportunity to learn a lot, but without the pressure. And also they are a big part of your curriculum. So I just put myself into this, and, you know, after, I don't know, 1.5 months, I already got my first positive answers when applying to the jobs. And I think it's not just because of who I am, my background and stuff, but also because I wrote in my curriculum that I was doing this internship and I was learning more about these technical things. So there was a very good opportunity. What else I want to say? I don't know. Can you repeat the question or give me an?
Yeah, no, just about your work, what you're doing.
Oh, right. So yeah, so my job now, I found a job. So from that internship, I found a job. I got offered a job, which well, it was an internship. I got offered a different internship, which I declined because at the same time I got offered different jobs. What you were saying about people writing you on LinkedIn, I'm like, I just graduated, you know, it was 4 months ago now. And people are texting me on LinkedIn, hey, we have a job for you in this company, blah, blah, blah. And I'm shocked because it's amazing. It feels amazing. But also I got offered these. So I applied to a lot of jobs, which is, as you were saying, is true. Apply to a lot of jobs, even though you don't have all the qualities. People are saying so, right? So do that, be confident, apply also to the jobs that you want to, like, for real. So quality and quantity, because in the middle of all of these, I got offered a job in a startup as the first full stack developer. So like the solo full stack developer, which is, I'm glad that Anastasia talked a little bit like about this, because it's useful for me to hear about this. I am imagining a very big growth in my career as being the first and solo full stack developer. Next step would be to manage other full stack developer if the startup goes up, which you never know. But it's also fun because it's a startup, so it's easy and people are my age. I got this job because I was prepared. I got this job because my relation capacities were good. So I talked to them. I was myself. I got this job because I was prepared with what CodeOp taught me. So one part of the interview was to develop a full stack application, and they gave me 5 days. And I did a full stack app in 4 days, and it was amazing to me because, like, first time I'm doing full stack from zero to the final product in 4 days. Of course, it took me 12 hours a day, probably. Maybe I was having lunch 1 hour, maybe not. So it was a lot of effort, but also they loved my product. They loved the fact that I did it in 4 days. I think they were not. Did we lose Katrina?
No, I'm here.
Oh. I'm sorry. So yeah, keep talking. So a lot of effort, being open to about who you are, and just always think about the fact that you are interviewing with people. So there are some people that you have to be more professional with. In a startup, of course, it's not like that. So I was friendly and professional and technical, but also not scared, even though I am scared. So now I have this job, which is cool to me because full stack, I started full stack, I'm doing full stack. I really like that. I wanted to be a full stack. I was a little bit of lucky also, of course, because, for not even, like, in July, they offered me the job. So 2.5 months to get the job. It's, of course, you You have to be a little bit lucky, but also I did a lot of interviews. So
Everyone, whenever I do this webinar, everyone always says, "Oh, I was lucky, I was lucky, I was lucky." Oh, no. I can tell
right.
you right now, it takes a lot more than luck to do this. Also, sure, there's randomness, no? There's randomness in everything. So I will allow like, okay, 10% luck, but 90% strategy. And certainly there
Right.
are strategies and there's attitude. We see it. Thanks everyone for sharing this. I want to answer some questions very quickly. So there's one question here. Sorry, but how many weeks does it take to finish the boot camp with projects and etc.? So the full stack development bootcamp, we have part-time and full-time. The full-time program is 11 weeks and the part-time program is 20. No. It's, give me 1 second. I should know this.
Maybe 23 something.
It can be 20. So if it's in the
Around 7 months.
yeah, if it's in the evening, it's 26. It's 30 weeks. If it's during the day, because it's 3 times a week, it's 26 weeks. And then the data analytics course is a shorter course. The data analytics course full-time is 8 weeks and the part-time is 20 weeks. You can find this on our website. Another question. So from Frank, I recognize your name. I'm pretty sure you wrote us recently or maybe submitted an application. Anyways, I did my Master of Science in UX design online, and it was not a good experience. I'm very sorry to hear that. We were assigned readings and usually outdated videos from different people than the instructor. The only online face-to-face time we had with our instructor was a 1-hour office hour weekly. I was lucky enough to have an instructor that would let her office hour go for as long as needed. Can you talk about what the instruction is like? Kelly, can you just share really quickly what the instruction was like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was again one of my favorite parts because this was also my concern, Frank. So I had Sophia and she was really not just her but the TAs, because the TAs also did study groups with us. And they were more concerned with us understanding, like before coding, understanding the logic that goes behind solving the problem. She also started with like pseudocoding to understand like how we would walk through the process, and then she would code it out. And sometimes like for the homework, she would actually ask like for volunteers for her to share our homework on the screen, and we would walk through together like how we came up with the solutions to the homework. There are slides that CodeOp provides, and they are more instructional, but for me, I'm a visual learner, and like the instruction of walking through the logic of the coding and how we got to, before we ever coded, how we got to the code that we're going to use, was really helpful. So it's very different. And again, like I said, in my cohort, the TAs set up time for like study groups, which was like a different day. And those study groups were really helpful because it kind of bridged the gap of what can't be covered in a bootcamp lecture. So like we were able to ask them any questions that we had. They would give us like coding challenges, or they would give us code that had a bug in it and we would have to find the bug. So it helps you to understand all of these things a lot better when you're looking at it like that.
Cool. Yeah, it's
And
alive. Yeah, go ahead, please.
sorry, if I may add, what I fully agree with Kelly, and like what I enjoyed the most, I think, from the teacher and from the TAs is that if you ask something, they wouldn't directly give you the answer. They would ask questions so you can answer. So they would basically help you solve the problem. But so it never felt like, all the sessions that I had with the TAs, it really felt like they had the time. So if they had to explain it 3 times or 4 times, or if they had to walk through it with me, they would do it. So it was also the teaching method was I really enjoyed it, because it's not about that specific problem, right? It's basically they were teaching you how to solve problems like in the future as well.
Totally. No, actually, so the person that developed our curriculum came from education. She was first an educator. Actually, she went on to do a boot camp She became a software engineer, and then she decided she wanted to focus on building curricula for boot camps. So she came, she taught our first cohort, fleshed out the curriculum, and so there is like a scope and sequence. There are learning objectives. We have a pedagogical approach. It's evidence-based. Pedagogy matters. And so this is actually a good question to ask when you're interviewing for boot camps. What is their pedagogical method? One question, is there specific pre-boot camp curriculum or just a general recommendation? It's specific. With, we have learning objectives and we check it. How difficult was it to find a job after the program? I think we addressed this. Important for the projects done in the course to be relevant for the field you're pursuing. No, not necessarily, but it can certainly help if you want to be hyper-focused, and that could be your strategy. Is the program free, or is there a payment plan for this boot camp? So we do free programs. They tend to be for Catalan residents. But our programs, there is a fee, and it's not cheap, so it is very important that we have different financial plans. And then it sort of depends on where you are in the world, but it can range from breaking the cost of the tuition into payments over like 12 months, 36 months. We do have income share agreements, so you don't pay until you start working. So there are options, and this is really important. And I mean, I could certainly spend an extra 30 minutes talking to you all lovely people, but I want to respect your time. Thanks everyone for joining us, and big thanks to our grads. I'm really proud of you all. I'm so grateful that we found you. You're really like exactly the kind of people that we want at CodeOp. You've been really lovely. This has been one of my favorite discussions. I'm going to share here in the chat two things. First is a link to our community Slack. There's over 1,000 people here. They're not just graduates. So if you want to, connect, please join our CodeOp Slack, community Slack group. And then also personally, my LinkedIn, feel free to reach out, and we can take it from there. But yeah, thanks for joining us, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.